Guitar Heroes. This is Mel from How to Play Guitars with an S.com. Today we are on day number 10 of 365 days of exercises from this book, Guitar Aerobics. 52 weeks of practice, 1 day for every day of the year. And if you go from the beginning of this book to the end of this book, you're going to go from an intermediate to an advanced player within a year's time. Like I said, we are on day number 10. In other words, week 2, day 3. You could say it that way. And this particular lick is just like the lick that we did on day 3. I'll put a link right up there in the corner for you so you could go watch that video. And this, again, just like yesterday's video, also is based on the Am Pentatonic 5th fret right here. Now that box, which is right here, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8, is, you can find the diagram for that in my group on School, SKOOL/Unleash Your Inner Guitar Hero, SKOOL.com/Unleash Your Inner Guitar Hero. And again, that's 5th fret on the low E, 8th on the low E, 5 on the A, 7 on the A, 5 on the D, 7 on the D, 5 on the G, 7 on the G, 5 on the B, 8 on the B, 5 on the E, 8 on the E. And then we're just going to go back down that same scale the way we came up. But here's the thing that we're going to do with this today is we're going to do a bending exercise. Now, last week's exercise was literally just bending up and going to the next note. This exercise is bending up and releasing it back down before going to the next note. So it looks and sounds like this. So I'm starting on the 8th fret of the B string, and I'm bending from the 8th fret to the 10th fret. Or you could say I'm bending up to the 5th fret on the high E string. Same note, it's an A note. So I'm bending this G on the 8th fret of the B string. So it sounds like the 5th fret on the high E string or the 10th on the B, A note. And what I'm doing though is I'm actually bending that up and releasing it back to G, okay? Before then playing the 5th fret on the high E by picking it, going back to the 8th on the B, 5th on the B, 7th on the G, bending that up to the 9th E or the 5th fret on the B string, same note, bending it up to that E, back down, back to the 5th on the B string, picking that note, and then 7 on the G, 5 on the G, landing on 7th on the D. Okay, so it's going to look like this and sound like this. And I would count the rhythm to that: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 is an off, and according to the music that was written into the book. I typically just keep the note going because I think personally it sounds a little bit better, but completely up to you how you want to do that. And the metronome marking for this is between 40 beats a minute and 120 beats a minute. 40 being the slowest, 120 being the fastest. Obviously, you can start slower. I recommend that actually if you have less experience, and going faster if you have more experience, if you totally want to. It's completely up to you, actually. But again, we're working on the bending up and down. Now, some students are really good at bending just up, and some students are better at bending up and down, and they can't just bend up. So both of these exercises, last week's and this week's, are good to practice together even if you can. And I would go back and review last week's video to do that, and then practice this week's lesson on this same scale. So again, you're really just bending on a couple key areas on the B string and G string. Now we could also bend on the 8th fret of the E string. And for a similar effect, you know, that's almost like, dare I say, like a B.B. King kind of thing. But you're bending the same idea, except the problem with this one is, not really a problem, but the thing is, the challenge is, when you bend this note, you're bending it to the 10th fret on the high E string. So that D note, from a C to a D, from the 8th on the B, or the 8th on the E, to the 8th, to the 10th on the E. But you don't have another string underneath to test it with, where these other notes that we just did, you do. So that's one of the disadvantages maybe to playing or practicing on that top string. But the advantage is you actually learn to train your ear better, and you build better calluses and better finger strength bending on that high E string, as it can often be a little bit more of a challenge than bending on the B string or the G string, especially if you have the unwound G like most electric guitars do now. And so anyway, that's essentially what the lick is. It's And then that vibrato I just add there at the end is on the D string, 3rd finger, 7th fret, just shaking it a little bit to make it last a little bit longer. Like I said, I think it sounds better that way. And anyway, I would just continue to have you just keep practicing this lick, and you can practice bending in other boxes up and down the neck. And some of those boxes also are going to be in my group on School, SKOOL.com/unleash your inner guitar hero, as is the box for this particular exercise. It's going to be in there for you. And in the meantime, keep practicing, keep playing. And I'll see you next time.